Okay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome, Kane. So Kane is an ex-SCAD student that graduated in animation, MFA and BFA and
Yeah,
MFA
did it
more
all.
recently. So welcome, Kane. And Kane is also behind the VR game Sushi Ben,
Yeah.
and he's here to kind of talk with us about kind of like kickstarting his own studio and maybe working in VR,
Yeah.
particularly in Unreal, I believe.
Yeah. Unreal, of
Oh my
course.
God.
Yeah.
So welcome, Kane, and thank you for being among us.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for showing up. So yeah, I graduated like as soon as the pandemic started last year, and or not last year in 2020, right? In March. So that last quarter, I was submitting my thesis. Which Sushi Ben wound up was actually my thesis project at SCAD. I had like a silly idea for a VR game. Even though I was an animation major, I was really interested in VR. And then, so like halfway through my major, I started pivoting to learning game dev, but I was already too far, you know, in the animation major to like switch right to game dev. So I decided to just, make a animated thing for my thesis that's in VR. And so like I had this idea, right, where I wanted to solve some of the problems with narrative VR, like storytelling, which is where like oftentimes when you're watching VR, especially if you've ever seen those 360 films, it's kind of like you're watching a play. And you kind of get kind of bored, and it's kind of like this flat experience, even though it's like 3D. Um, and also trying to direct the player where to look at the right place at the right time is also kind of like this challenge or roadblock that you find in creating VR narratives, which is why you kind of don't really see like a ton of VR narrative content. Um, Most of it's just action games or mini game type stuff, right? There are quite a few now since I started, since I've graduated and since I started my project, a bunch more VR narrative type stuff, but it's still probably the smallest genre. And so like I came up with this idea to create these 3D like manga panels that would kind of put some film language back into VR. So like, and I'll show some examples of this stuff. But essentially, I wanted to have a way to put extreme close-ups, insert shots, flashbacks, or like scenarios where if a character you're talking to is talking about someone that's not present, like a thing that happened in the past or something that's happening in tandem, you can kind of show those people the things that those people are talking about through these panels. And they also serve as a nice little way to do tutorials in VR as well. I can show like character. What was that bell sound just now? You want to hear that, or is that
It's
just
just
me?
someone joining.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I haven't used Zoom. I haven't used Zoom in the pandemic.
Yes. So when people join in, it makes a little bell
Okay.
ring.
All right, cool. Yeah, so yeah, these little 3D manga panels, they're super handy, super wild. I think the biggest challenge though that when creating them was like, or working on my thesis was kind of creating the tech behind creating the 3D panels. I'm not sure how much of you are really into tech art, but it's not really something that can easily be done in VR and be performant. And I guess I should probably just show you guys in case no one's looked at anything I've done yet. Let's do a little screen share here. Screen one, share. All right, cool. And let me pull up, I'm just gonna pull up something on Twitter really quick. Also, I highly recommend if you guys are looking to do your own stuff in game dev or even just getting a job in game dev, I highly recommend leveraging Twitter or any type of social media to promote your work. Hold on, let me mute Discord. Let's see. Right, there we go. Okay. Because Twitter is how I've pretty much raised all the money for my game and how I've pretty much started my studio, just from having tweets go viral. And I'll go into more of that in a second, but I just kind of want to show you guys like this. It doesn't play my sound, does it? Let's hope not.
You can share the sound. So when you share your screen, there is a little thing at the bottom an option to share the sound.
Okay, well, I don't really want to share the sound, but so here we go. This is the tech that I created, like these 3D manga penguins in Unreal. And I'll just kind of play this short little clip for you guys. So essentially I've created like this mask in 3D space that will let me mask out objects in 3D, as opposed to locking them behind a 2D, what's the term that we use in Unity for this type of effect? Stencil buffers. Instead of using stencil buffers, these are actually like, they can actually like come out of the panels without using any kind of like tricks of like a hidden mesh to kind of project. Because like stencil buffers, right? They project a 3D image onto a mesh, basically, and they're only allowed to operate within that bounds of that mesh.
That's very cool. I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, this is like the whole concept. So once I came up with this concept, I built the whole game around it. And my game was essentially based off of my time as a waiter at a sushi bar in Savannah. The one downtown closed. It's called Sushi Zen, but there's one on South Side. It was like the only at the time, back in like 2009 or whatever, when I first started working there. It was like the only real Japanese sushi bar in Savannah, and it was super awesome. And so I kind of just wanted to make a game about that type of experience. So that's kind of like, the characters in this tech demo are kind of inspired by the people that I worked with and things like that. Like Ben was the sushi chef there. So yeah, I spent a long time developing the tech throughout my thesis, and originally kind of the tech that I developed for my thesis wasn't very good. I don't know how many of you had to deal with VR development much yet, but I had this original tech that used render targets, and again, if you're not in the tech art, maybe you don't know what that is, but essentially it just renders a 2D image onto a plane, essentially, and then you can project that into, if you use like a post-process volume, you can project that into the world for people to look at. But in VR, you want to have it 3D, right? You want to have that stereoscopic, like, a 3D effect, so it has depth. Because I think if it was just flat panels, it wouldn't be as immersive, and it just would feel kind of not as exciting. So I created this technique where we took several. I'll just keep this up looping because it's fun. I took like several. I took two cameras, right, and I would record an image, and then I would have to like line up your IPD. And so players would have to line up their IPD when they start the game in order for this 3D effect to take place, because it took two images and just kind of laid them on top of each other to make it like this stereoscopic effect using render targets. And render targets are extremely expensive in VR, and so it wasn't very good, but it got my concept in the door. And I used that for my thesis. People hated doing it because like in game, you had to calibrate your IPD, so you had to press a button until the panels became, lined up perfectly. And it also kind of hurt people's eyes. I might have been causing eye damage to some people. So it wasn't a good technique, but it kind of got the ball rolling, right? So when I had that idea, I developed that tech, and then I started kind of like, while I was at SCAD, I would put up help wanted posters everywhere, right? And I'd be like, hey, come work on my thesis project and, help me make a VR game. And so I talked a bunch of students into helping me. We had like a team of like 10 or 15 people doing characters, 3D modeling, animation, the whole thing. And me being an animation student, I had no idea about anything like game dev related. I had no idea how to do programming or anything like that. So I had to rely on a lot of people to do that, and I could never find a programmer that could work on my game. So for the longest time, it was just me. And so I made like the entire demo in sequencer and just like this whole demo that you see here was all made in sequencer. I didn't use any kind of like coding or anything. I used a little bit of blueprints in Sequencer for some events to trigger events and things like that. But pretty much everything I've ever did was just all in Sequencer. No AI or nothing. So it was kind of a mess, right? But it was good enough to get my thesis done, and I graduated, and then the pandemic hit. And then I was trying to be like a teacher at SCAD, but they wouldn't hire me. Because I wanted to see 3D modeling because that's what I'm good at. And then as that went on, I was still working on my game, right? Because I wanted to turn it into a game, right? And kind of see where I could take it. And then I applied to the Oculus Launchpad, which if you're looking to get into VR dev, I highly recommend that you do. You don't really have to have an impressive portfolio or anything. Just have like an interest in VR and send them a portfolio with something, just some type of skill set that you have in game dev, or that could help in game dev. And because we had a lot of people in our Oculus Launchpad group that, they weren't developers per se, but they were good at modeling or they were good at animating, and then they could join up with other people. And I'll explain. So I guess, sorry, the Launchpad is actually this little thing that Oculus used to do. I don't know if they're going to do it anymore. I assume they will. So maybe it's Meta Launchpad now or whatever. So this,
I think now it's getting a little bit crowded.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
That's the problem, right? With emerging tech is that when you're there at the beginning, you have kind of a nice, cozy group of people. But absolutely, people should apply.
Yeah, people should apply. Like I mean, I got in when the getting was good. It was like the last year that it was like good, probably. So I highly recommend applying for it. If usually the applications are due like in August or something. Because you get like a lot of free hardware, and
I think it's all year long. I applied in January.
Oh no, that's Start. That's Oculus. That's Oculus Start.
Start.
Yeah. No. Oculus Launchpad is actually Oculus Launchpad is a separate program. It's kind of like an incubator where they basically spend 3 months to create a demo. And you have to apply to get in, and it's usually for like recent graduates or people that are still in college type thing. And so it's like this three-month long incubator thing where you go and create like a vertical slice of your game, and that's kind of what you're seeing here is the vertical slice I created during that 3-month period. And you can only have a team of 5. So you sign up as a solo. You can sign up as a solo dev or a team. And I signed up kind of as like half because I didn't have a full team yet. And so I got into Oculus Launchpad. I met a bunch of people. I did a game jam. And one thing I highly recommend for your careers is like doing game jams with, not just at SCAD or not just the global one, but outside of SCAD as well. Like that's where I met my programmer who's now the co-founder of my studio, Big Brane Studios. which is a combo of me and the founder's name. My name's Kane, and then his name is Brian, and so we kind of stuck our names together and created some cheesy name or whatever. And
for us, Game Jam is tonight. It starts at 5.
Yeah,
and that may be the reason why we have a little bit of a lower attendance today.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. So yeah, the game jams are insanely important, I think, for networking and kind of getting your feet wet. It looks great on your portfolio, if you guys finish and have something on there. So yeah, I met my programmer through the Oculus Launchpad that's held, or they hold like this game jam every year for everyone in the Oculus family. So like the Oculus Start, which is what Cyril was talking about earlier, where it's kind of like this program where you can sign up, and then they'd give you like free hardware. They'd give you like a free Rift S or and a bunch of like hoodies and mugs, free stuff. Whether or not they continue doing that, giving out the free stuff, I'm not sure. But if you do the Launchpad, they do, because they give everyone a free Quest, which was nice because I didn't have one at the time. And essentially, I did the game jam, and I met this developer, and I kind of talked him into joining my team. So I had to assemble like 5 people, right? So I kind of talked him into it, and he happened to be like this amazing dev. Like he was this crazy talented dude who just didn't have like he didn't have a direction that he was really going in. And so I kind of just, scooped him up, and it was like the best decision I've ever made because the guy is insane. He helped me figure out all this wild stuff that I couldn't do, and because like I'm the art side and he's the tech side of things, right? He handles all the programming and all that jazz. And so me and him just spent like the next like 3 or 4 months working. But as I mentioned before, I had used render targets to make my game, or make the 3D panels, which is not very, it's not very good for VR. Render targets are insanely expensive. And so I just kind of did that. I spent like the 3 months developing this 3D tech, and I guess I can, oh, you know what? I can just show it here. So if you look here, this is what we created. We created like these little 3D portals that you can kind of see here. And I can pull this guy in and out forever. It's just infinite space back here. And you got these cool little things that you can do, right? And so this is using like, this is all like shader. It's all done with it's like, we call it a quad intersection shader. It's where it's kind of like ray marching, where you shoot 2 rays and it finds the center of a square, or a quad. We're also able to change the shape of the quad to anything we want on the fly and animate it. Currently our border isn't fixed yet. We still have to do some like weird vertex animation stuff to get that to work, to line up. But here you can see I can kind of just create like this, any quad shape that I want. And this was actually really hard to do, coming up with this tech. And it spent, I think I spent like that entire 3 months just developing the shader. And it's actually something that's not really there's no tutorial for it. There's no like guide. It's just this whole new concept that I got inspired by a tweet I saw on Twitter, right? So I took that concept they used and turned it into what we have here, where I can just take whatever I want and put into these panels, and if you go to the back here, you can't see anything at all. Okay, sorry. Updating. You can also do things where if you can pull this guy forward and make him bigger, like this, or you can also do things like this, where we go, let's just see, tag and a tag, move, and now it's stuck behind this forever and it can't come out, right? So it's a really powerful system here that we've created to use for visual storytelling in VR. And this is probably part of the reason why we've actually been so successful. It's just this one unique concept. And so, yeah, we developed that, and we spent all our time. We didn't make the Oculus Launchpad submission deadline because we were too busy developing this tech, which took forever to figure out how to do and get performant, right? So after doing that, I kind of like, I felt really sad. I was like, oh, I didn't get to submit to Oculus Launchpad, because when you submit your demo at the end of the 3 months, you have a chance to get money from them. They'll give you like anywhere from like $10,000 to $5,000 to $30,000, which sounds great at first, but then you quickly realize that's not a lot of money, actually. It doesn't really, you can't make a game with that. It doesn't really get you anywhere. It's really just kind of like it really is a launch pad. It's just to get you started, so you can work for maybe 3 months and try to figure out where to go from there. And so what I did is I finished our tech demo after Launchpad. I wound up having to get a job at the time to pay the bills, because for a while I was just working on the game full time. But I wound up having to get like a job. And so I got a job at a game called Little Kitty Big City by an ex-Valve dev. And I got this job through Twitter. I would post like GIFs of like the buildings that I made for this game. You can probably maybe see some of them here. Yeah, like all these buildings and things. I would just post on Twitter every day. And then Matt from the creator of Little Kitty Big City, you might have seen this game on like TikTok or Facebook or Twitter or anywhere. It's pretty popular. It's become quite popular. And he came to me one day and was just like, hey, you know, can you work on my game? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And so I just started working on this game. I made all the buildings and things that you see in these in this game here, all this kind of stuff. And I was doing that during the week, and then on the weekends I would work on my VR game with Brane. It was just me and Brane. We would work and make stuff as much as we can. And then about like three or 4 months post Launchpad, I had a tweet go viral. So we go back to my Twitter here. Let's see. Which one was it? This one. Yeah. So this was the first tweet I ever had go like semi-viral in the game dev space. Like going viral in the game dev space and like going viral like elsewhere is totally different. Like the numbers are nowhere near as insane. But you know, getting numbers like this, anything past 1,000 is usually pretty good for likes on Twitter for the game dev sphere. And so like I made this, right? I made this quick little video of displaying how the VR panels can be used to direct the player's attention, right? And so that kind of blew up for me, and kind of pretty much was the reason why I am where I am today, pretty much. After posting this tweet and having it go viral, a lot of publishers started reaching out to me. And they would basically, you know, ask me, hey, can we meet and talk about your game? And then when I would describe my game to them, they would get very confused, because my game is not like a traditional game. It's kind of like side quest the game. If you've ever played games like the Yakuza series or Majora's Mask, it's pretty much the side quests from those games, and that's it. There's no like you don't go on some grand adventure. You don't go fighting anything. You don't go, there's no combat. You don't shoot anybody with guns, or no offense, Cyril.
None taken.
Yeah, okay. So it's a very abstract concept to pitch to a lot of big studios. But I was approached by Team 17, which I don't know if you guys have heard of them. They're quite a big publisher. I talked to them for a while, but they didn't quite get my game, and I couldn't understand why. And also, while all this was going on, I was also being approached by various VR hardware companies as well. And one of them had been reached out to me before I even created this viral tweet on Twitter. Again, like I want to emphasize Twitter is like probably your best weapon for getting, well, maybe TikTok might be good now too, but a lot of us older folks in the game dev community usually use Twitter. Twitter, there's a hashtag that goes around every few months on Twitter called pitch a game. And if you have like your own game concept, you can pitch that concept. You don't even have to have like a full game. You can just pitch a tweet, like a photograph of what your game concept is, or a small GIF. And people, and lots of industry people look at that tweet, right? And then, so I had a hardware company reach out to me because they had saw my post, and I thought that post had just flopped. I thought that no one had liked it. It only got like 20 or 30 likes or something. I didn't think anyone saw it. But someone did see it, and talking to them, you know, that kind of gave me the motivation to keep moving forward, because they were saying like, yeah, if you give me a vertical slice of your game, we could give you a small amount of funding, like $10,000, right? And I was like, oh man, $10,000, that's great. But yeah, so that gave me the motivation to keep trucking on. And then this tweet went viral, right? And then once that tweet went viral, I kind of just, you know, the people came to me and they started asking me all this stuff. And like I said, once I met with the publishers, they kind of didn't get my game, and I couldn't really figure out why. And I think it was because, and I think I'll show here. Oh, I can move this thing. Oh, thank God. The zoom control thing was in the way. I couldn't see. So I couldn't understand why these publishers weren't understanding my game from just me explaining it to them and them playing our tech demo. And so I created this little like 10-minute long tech demo, or like a a vertical slice, right? Where you go through and you meet a character and then you're like going out to eat with them. And it was only like a small slice of the game, and it was just to illustrate like how the 3D manga panels could be used in narrative scenarios, and also how they could be used for tutorials as well. So you can see here, like I teach the player how to sit down using our VR sit down mechanic, right? Where you have to pull out a chair, and then once you pull out that chair, you get teleported into the seat, which was insane to develop. They had a lot of crazy problems, where you'd get like teleported to like other parts of the map, where you would get like, if you like, you could accidentally flip yourself over in the chair and just go into this death spiral where you'd flip forever and ever and ever and never end. And so a lot of VR development, it was kind of dangerous. Sometimes when you mess up, you can make yourself sick quite easily if you're trying to do crazy stuff. But yeah, so I created this demo and just kind of illustrated like what the panels could do and what a part of the game loop is in my game, which is going out to eat with customers and having like these narrative events that like take place while you're eating with them. But it still didn't quite resonate with the publishers at first, like the big name publishers that weren't into VR yet. They were still approaching me because they're all interested in getting into the space, but they haven't found a title for them yet. So they thought maybe my game might be it. So it was kind of weird. There is a little bit of gameplay here, like, all right, we can pick up a knife and we can throw it, or we could just walk up and chop up this tentacle, right? And that's kind of like the small amount of gameplay that there is in my game. And the publishers didn't get it, right? And I couldn't understand why they didn't get this. And I sent them a pitch deck, right, that was supposed to describe my game. Maybe I'll pull it up in a slideshow just to make it bigger. So here was my first pitch deck, right? And I would go through and I would talk. I had a cute little trailer that kind of just showed off the panels and the pretty environments and stuff like that, or whatever, right? And so, I had all these little notes about what the types of things that be in the game, and then I tried to describe this weird complex game loop that didn't quite make sense. 3D manga panels, talk about what that was all about, and then marketing. I had an article on The Verge because my demo was shown at E3 last year, during the upload or the VR showcase, and then The Verge wrote an article saying that this is one of their favorite games from that showcase. And I've had a few other articles on like Rock Paper Shogun, Kotaku, written about my game recently as well. And so here's kind of like what I was pitching. My actual initial pitch to publishers was 500,000, which I thought was good enough to make a game. In reality, it's still kind of, at least the type of game, the scale of the game that I'm making is, it actually wasn't enough. But then I thought, then I lowered the number to try to get publishers. Maybe I was asking for too much, but in reality, I wasn't asking for enough. And that's an actual thing, where if you're pitching a game, sometimes you could get stuck in this weird spot where the publisher knows that you're not asking for enough, or they don't think your game, or they don't want to spend that much money on your game. So you either have to go like, if you just go with like a smooth 500,000, then they're kind of like, they're not sure about it. But if your game was lower than that, the 350,000 range, maybe that would be okay. And then you could shoot up to the next range, would be like 750,000 to $1 million. And in that range, that usually works. And so essentially, I tried retooling my pitch deck and thought maybe I was asking for too much money or wasn't asking for the right amount. But in reality, my pitch deck just wasn't good. It just didn't describe my game good enough. Like it didn't show like what kind of VR interactivity my game had, which it has a lot. There's a lot going on with my game. And so I kind of went over, and eventually, after that first publisher that first big publisher rejected my game and basically said, we don't know if you really have a game, and we don't really know We don't get it, right? But what I did is I actually I went and talked to people because I was curious about this publisher in the first place. And I went and talked to people that, like I literally just went to someone's Twitter and DM them or sent them an email, like a studio. I won't say which studio, but it's a studio that's been published by the publisher that I was working or talking to at the time. And I kind of asked them, hey, what's it like working, with this publisher? Are they a good publisher or whatever? And, they gave me like some tips on how to talk to them and do that kind of thing. So I do kind of recommend that maybe you do kind of reach out to some industry people, and just ask a question. The worst they could say is no. Well, actually, that's not the worst I could say. If you give them an email that's like poorly written, right, and kind of not a good professional email, they might get a little upset and take a screenshot and post it on Twitter or something like that and flame you. So make sure that when you're writing an email that you're respectful of these people, that you make sure everything's spelled correctly, and you don't write like an essay to them. Keep it short and sweet. Get to the point. Never email people asking, "Can I ask you a question?" Everyone that I know in the industry hates that. It's like the worst thing on the plot that you could ever do. So just email them and ask them directly what you want. So I emailed them. I was like, hey, what's it like working with Team 7? Well, I already said Team 17. And they're like, yeah, they're great. And then I kind of talked to them more and more through email, and they kind of became my mentor, right? The person who leads that studio. So I developed a relationship with them, and I would ask them questions about maybe how should I do this? Should I fix my pitch deck? And so they went through my pitch deck and looked at it. They found all these problems with it. So I definitely recommend like showing your pitch deck to people before you send it off. Don't just shoot it blind. And so through dealing with that person, they wound up wanting to fund my game when I was talking to them, since the publisher backed out. And so I was working with the studio, and then they offered the fund part of my game. And then we would go but they said we needed to redo our pitch deck because they want to pitch my game to more developers or like other places for funding. Because like in the VR space, there's several ways to get funding. There's either publishers, venture capitalists, or VR hardware. So you can pitch. Well, I don't know if you can actually pitch as easy as you used to like the VR hardware companies. Usually they have to come to you for the most part, unless you have a connection at that company. And then again, that's where I'm saying that I think it's important that you leverage all types of social media. It could be Reddit, it could be Twitter, it could be TikTok, to post your work. Because there are people out there looking to fund your game. So I started working on this new pitch deck with the help of that person who runs that studio that I mentioned before. And we kind of started like going through it and better explaining my game's core gameplay loop, which is you walk around this town, you find people that have problems, and you solve those problems, and then you ask them to go out to eat with you at the sushi bar. And I guess I should have explained this earlier. The whole theme of my game is you've just moved to this town, or actually I shouldn't say it like that. Your favorite sushi bar is going out of business, and it's up to you to save it. So that's kind of like the elevator pitch for the tagline of the game. And so what you'll do is you'll walk around this town looking for people that are like, having problems. You go talk to them, solve those problems. And once you solve those problems through some type of mini game, some sort of narrative quest, trade quest, we have like games where we have a mini game like fish. We have a lot of fishing mini games, so characters may need help catching a fish or something like that. We also have we even have like ghost exorcism in our game. So you have to go and like maybe someone's house is haunted, right? And you have to go up to their house and like exorcise the ghosts. And once you've done that, they'll agree to go eat with you. Or even a more simple example is someone's lost their pet, like a cat, and you have to go run around this town and try to find the cat. But since it's in VR, it's actually kind of more fun than normal because you're like running around trying to catch this cat with your hands, or trying to figure out how to like get the cat to come to you. And so like we have a mechanic where we have our fishing mechanic, right? Well, you can have a fish on the end of your fishing rod, and throw your fishing rod towards the cat and try to, make the cat come to you, and catch it that way. So there's a lot of different ways to solve the problems. And so once you've solved those problems and completed the quest for that character, they'll agree to go, they'll ask you like, hey, what can I do to repay you? And you'd be like, oh, come out to eat with me at the sushi bar. So then you have another part of the game where you have to eat with them and make sure that they have like a good time eating. And in my old pitch deck, it didn't explain any of this. I didn't explain any of that, and I explained it to them verbally. And me explaining it to you verbally is not very good, compared to just reading a pitch deck, right? Like my Twitter is what got me in the door, but like my pitch deck was letting me down in the green light reviews of these publishers, and because I didn't explain my core concept. Because since my game is so unique, it needed more slides to properly describe it. And generally the people say, oh, don't put too many slides in your pitch deck, don't do it. No one wants to read a 30-page pitch deck. But for my case, it was like an edge case scenario where I did need to have more slides. And so this is what I did. I showed them, here's the core gameplay loop. And then I made some like little pictures. But these aren't like I said, like I wasn't even very good at programming, and I just posed characters and I didn't even like make it. It's like fake. I didn't have to make the game for these screenshots. Well, I had my environments, but I just made screenshots like this. I'm not actually holding this dog. This is just like some hands floating in the air, and I stuck the dog model like in there and just took screenshots. And so like, yeah, we found this dog in a tree, which is weird, right? I gave her the dog, and now we go out to eat. And then once you go out to eat with the character, or once you finish the quest, you can pick a time of day and be like, hey, let's go eat on Tuesday at 3, right? And, okay, we're gonna go eat at Tuesday at 3. So you meet the character there, and then you eat dinner together, and you wanna make sure that the person has like a good time eating with you. So like, while you're waiting for your date to happen, you need to go around the town talking to people and finding out what that person likes, or even just talking to that person directly, being like, hey, what kind of, trying to figure out what kind of food they like, so that when you go to the date, you can prepare in advance. Because maybe the sushi bar doesn't have what they like or whatever, and you really want them to be a customer, and so you might have to go fishing to find a special ingredient that will make them want to keep coming back, right? So like all these complex various things, and I was always really bad at explaining it, even right now probably I'm doing a bad job. So yeah, so I just made a better pitch deck really, that explained like more of the things in our game that, and even before, like I didn't even have a mini. I didn't have any slides showing the mini games, or any of the types of things that you do in the game, and it was just a really bad pitch deck. So I can definitely see why I was rejected. So now I created like all these other things just showing just, kind of the types of things that you'll get to do in the game, different VR activities. There's all kinds of different types of things. And so that was my pitch deck. And so once we got this pitch deck completed, we started going to these other companies. And one trick that I did do that kind of helped me get through a lot of the doors is that a VR hardware company had approached me that I had mentioned before. And after they finally played my demo, they offered me way more money than they had initially said. Like, I said like the $10,000, right? They gave me like, I'll just say, they gave me $100,000, right? And I used that to leverage other meetings. So I would go into these different meetings saying, hey, this company is, they are willing to put in this amount of money. How much would you guys be willing to put in? And we'd pitch them a number. And I would say, this is how much money it would take to make my game. Is that even in here? No, I took it out for the public pitch deck, but we were originally pitching for 500,000, and we were still going for that goal. But I broke it out to different sources. Like I would go to different VR hardware companies and ask them for a certain amount of money in order to achieve that 500,000, instead of trying to get all that money from one place. And again, it's hard to get into those places without having a social media presence and having them directly approach you. Like you still, you unless you have a connection, like you have someone that that has like a working connection with these people, a lot of times you can't pitch to them. They took away their public pitching a long time ago, I think. Because used to, you could just pitch back in the day when the market wasn't as saturated as it is now. You could just pitch, and then they'd be like, "Yeah, well, here's some money." So essentially, we got all this grant money, right? So that it's money that we don't have to pay back. And then I leveraged that total grant money that we received, and I started using that for publishers. So then I would go, now that I had all this other money raised from VR hardware companies and the studio that I had talked about earlier that I was working with. Once I had all that money, then I would go and I would pitch to publishers. I'd be like, "Hey, I've got all these companies backing me. Would you guys, help me double our asking price? Would you come? Would you double our funding and meet us? So that way we're 50-50 type partners." And that worked. That worked quite well, actually. I got I've pretty much met with every single major publisher in VR. Like any company that's publishing VR right now, I've talked to them. I've been in the doors, and I've done the whole thing with all these different companies. And again, some of these companies I pitched to in the past, and they didn't respond. But then an article came out on Kotaku talking about how much money I had raised for my game, and that I was like, I'd fully met my funding goals. And when that article came out, literally the next day, several big VR publishers responded to the emails I had sent them 6 months ago. And so, that was pretty wild, right? And once I did that, then I could finally get more meetings with publishers, and I started talking to them and saying like, "Yeah, here's how much we have." And then pretty much something happened though, since like I showed you guys that demo I created, right? It doesn't have any of those mini games, right? It doesn't have any of that stuff that was in my pitch deck. And so a lot of the companies, they're kind of like, they want to see another demo, like another vertical slice. And so we have enough money to create another vertical slice, and that's what we've been doing. But I actually just recently, I'm about to sign a contract with a publisher next week. So, and so like, because I pitched to so many publishers, I finally found one that didn't need to see another concept. They just believed in the concept that I have already. And so now that since I had the confidence through all these different, I had raised this money, I didn't start my studio until after I had raised all the money. Because there's no point in starting a studio if you don't have any money. Like there's just this, why pay for the cost of setting it up? Well, why do all that stuff? Because we did it through some lawyers. Like I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that game dev lawyer on Twitter. I'm not Twitter, but Reddit. There's this famous Reddit game dev lawyer guy, and we went with his firm to set up our company. And they also drew up all of our contracts for the employees and did all this stuff officially. I definitely don't recommend doing it by yourself. I mean, you totally can set up your own company on your own. But we wanted to do like a whole corporation thing. So we set up our company in Delaware and did all that stuff. So we're kind of like Amazon, I guess. So yeah, we've done that. Once we knew we had the money, once we knew that the money was coming, we did that, and then we set up our company and picked the name and talked to some lawyers to walk us through it, because we had no idea really how to do it the right way. So we just went, found some lawyers that specialized in game dev stuff, right? And kind of this other thing that I've done through social media, again, I'm going to always just bring this up all nonstop. The other thing that I did through social media was used it as a device to find talent to hire for my game. Like the people that I've hired for my game are extremely talented. Let's see who to find a direct link to them. I guess I'll just type it here. One sec. Just pull this out. So here, so this is my character modeler. She's a quite prolific, low poly character modeler, and here's like one of the characters that she's finished for my game recently. And what I would do, I would just go through all these like Twitter artists, right? And I would find that, find the ones that were like really good at what they did, and I would kind of DM them and talk to them, and be like, hey, what are your rates for working, or would you like to work on my game? And eventually, they'll get through. And Kathy, she does a whole bunch of VTuber type avatar stuff. This like really aesthetically pleasing low poly art style that would run really well in Quest. And so I would just go through Twitter and I would find all these different artists, and I would DM them and ask them to work with me. And that's kind of how I built my studio. So I have all this great talent now, literally all through Twitter. That's pretty much that. And I hired a bunch of SCAD students as well. Animator, like our entire animation team is all from SCAD. Our sound designers from SCAD. But yeah, that's about it for the other SCAD people that I have hired. And we have a team of about 20 plus people now working on the game full time, some of them half time. Yeah, I think that's I'm running out of things to say, Cyril. Help.
No, that's super interesting, and I'm actually learning stuff myself.
Yeah.
I'm super glad.
One other tip. So one other thing that I have learned through Twitter is that publishers won't really care as much about your game if it can't break like 1,000 likes on Twitter. From what I've talked to from other people in the circle and just through other common threads, like if you can break like 1,000 likes, that's like a good litmus test for how popular your game could potentially be with a stronger advertising force behind it. And once you kind of break that limit, publishers will definitely come knocking on your door. Some of them not very good, so you have to be careful. There are a lot of bad deals out there, actually. I had been hoping for, like, when I talk to publishers, right, I've been looking for like a 70-30 split, which is like totally unrealistic. Apparently, I didn't realize that was going to be quite unrealistic if they're offering funding. Like if you're a big title and you don't need money from the publisher, then a 70-30 split is pretty good, right? Because they'll handle all the marketing, all the QA, all the stuff you don't really want to deal with. And that's kind of the reason why we're going with the publisher is I wanted a bigger budget for my game, and I didn't want to deal with QA or any of the advertising and all that type of stuff. I just wanted to focus on making the game. And so you have to be careful what kind of deals that you are being offered. We got offered this insane deal a few months ago where this company was like, hey, we like your game. Can you finish it this year? My game's not supposed to release until March of next year. And they were like, hey, what if you finished your game for the release of PSVR 2 in November or something, right? And I was like, I mean, maybe. And then they go, and I was like, well, we're asking you guys for this amount of money and we'll need it doubled or tripled. Which is like a 3 million plus range, right? And they're like, yeah, sure, we'll do it, and so they were offering me like millions of dollars to make the game in, I mean, how many, God, what is it, like 8 months, 8 or 9 months, 10 months or whatever, whenever the PSVR 2 comes out, which isn't realistic at all. And I think the split they were offering was something like 60-40, which I am not a fan of. I probably wouldn't take a 60-40 deal. Just does not feel right. Especially if I'm putting in my own money, because I already had my own, set amount of money that I'd already raised, which was quite a lot. And so it was a bad deal. Don't take deals that'll cause you to crunch, even if they're throwing like millions of dollars at you. I think that it's not safe because you don't know that your game is going to come out, right? You don't know that what delays are going to happen. There's just no way you could predict that your game is going to launch on that window, regardless of how much money they give you. So yeah, that was one really bad deal. There's others that are just like, they just, bad splits, bad revenue shares. Or maybe and they weren't offering to like fund or put a big fund into advertising or do localization or something. You need to make sure that like the publisher is going to do like pretty much all the other stuff, like localization, quality assurance, advertising. Even some studios offer like levels of tech support. They can help you with porting, and things like that. So you definitely want to make sure that you're not taking like really bad deals, even though they're offering you a lot of money, because you would have to sell like 200,000 plus copies or something to make back some of those deals before you even see a profit. Because VR games, I don't know if you guys have noticed, they don't sell for a lot of money. Yeah, they're quite people expect to pay a lot cheaper for a lot of those games, especially if it's from an indie dev. So it's quite thin margins that you're operating on sometimes, unless your game is like a smash success, right? And you're selling like the current estimation for Quest, like market share right now is like what, 10 million units. That's just like the gross, that's like the estimate everyone uses. And so you'd need at least like a 3% to 2% market penetration to make back your money and break even. If you were selling your game at like $15 and you had like, depending on however much money the deal you sign with the company is, right? So, which is quite it's spooky. You don't know, you can't guarantee that you're gonna hit those numbers. So yeah, I think that's about covers it. So if you guys have questions or whatever, feel free to ask, because like I know I kind of like sped through that and kind of went all over the place.
I have a go ahead.
Go for it, please. Absolutely, go for it.
Yeah.
I have a question. Are you guys still hiring on the creative side at the moment?
What role?
Like creative people, like design or artist, concept design stuff.
Concept design stuff. Actually, no, we aren't. Definitely not hiring in concept. I already have. We have one concept artist from Japan doing our character design, and then we have, and that's the only concept artist we have. The rest of our game is done through Google. We actually do all of our environment research and stuff through Google Maps. We just use that as our kind of reference thing, because we're kind of replicating a small seaside town. So yeah, we don't have any.
I'm just wondering. I'll still drop my portfolio in the link.
Yeah, go ahead. Who knows?
And then if you're interested, just give me a message or something.
Yeah, of course.
I'm really into VR stuff, and I think there's a future for that. So
yeah. No, I mean, if you guys want, anyone can just show me your application, your portfolio or whatever. Because like I do keep a database of that, right? Because like any people that I've hired, like have some people, I did like a big job posting not too long ago, and even if I didn't hire you now, what more roles might happen in the future. So it's always good to give it to me. You never know what.
Kane, you are on my Discord, correct?
Yeah, I am on the Discord. Yeah, you can find me on Discord.
So what you can do is maybe post, and people can like message you.
Yeah, here I'll post.
Right stuff. And we have a question from Michael, and I think we had a question from Troy. Is it still valid?
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, it just the hand sign disappears after like a few seconds.
Yeah.
You might have
Michael, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, sure. Also, Professor Gauchard, do you think you could post your Discord link here?
Yeah, I can.
Okay,
yes. Give me a second. Yeah, I'll do it.
Great, I appreciate that. And Kane, you did a really great job with your talk. Thank you so much for just coming on. And I definitely saw like a huge difference between the first pitch set that you showed us and like the second one. So like, yeah, it did a really good job like explaining your game. Are you cool with us like reaching out to you like on Twitter just for advice, or if you know anybody?
Yeah, no, I highly recommend doing that.
Okay,
reach out to me, ask whatever you want, portfolio advice, whatever.
Okay, thank you very much.
Because now it's weird actually. I've been on the other side of portfolio review now. So like instead of me getting rejected all the time, now I have to, look at everyone else's portfolios and things. And so yeah, if you have any, any kind of advice on that, just feel free to ask.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Troy?
Yeah. Hello, Mr. Kane.
Hey.
Just a general question. Professor Gouchard, he's been teaching us for Studio 2 and Studio 3, the Agile workflow system. I was wondering, how do you guys incorporate that into your company as well? And if so, like, how does it differ? How are the similarities? Is it about the same?
So what I did, I hired a project manager to handle that for me. But yeah, it is pretty much what Serial is talking to you guys about is what my project manager does. We do the whole agile system. We have like 2-week sprints, and we actually have we just started full production in January. So like the first of January, or like the first week of January, we just started. And we haven't like scaled up to our entire full team yet. We still have more coming in February. So I'm not really the best person to ask about that. Yeah, sorry, but I assume it's probably what Serial's talking about, because
and to take some of the hit of you, Troy, Agile, I think I mentioned it in class. It's going to be it's going to be slightly different per company. So some people are going to go with Kanban. Like for me, I use Kanban, which is a variation around Agile. It's better for smaller teams. It's a little bit more, it is a little bit more agile. In the sense of like it goes faster. It's a little bit easier to maintain. Some people go with like the full Scrum. Each company will have a different application. And more importantly, when you talk to indies, I'm one of the few, and I would say Kane, that are actually using the agile system. A lot of the indie companies, they actually don't manage that well.
It's like,
which is a big problem.
It is a huge problem.
And that's the reason why there are like a lot of indie studios that actually don't output games. It's because those things get mismanaged, they run out of money, et cetera, and things don't get done in time. So, I mean, actually, the fact that Kane is actually like hired someone to kind of like organize this and things like that is, to me, already like 2 thumbs up.
Our producer actually worked on Among Us VR. So he has tons of experience doing that type of stuff. So he helped ramp up that production. Because I think one of my best talents as a director and as a studio lead, is that I am able to I have a good job. I do a good job at hiring people to make up for my weak sides. Like, I'm not an organized person. I'm super messy, and I have terrible habits. And so I'll just hire people to make up for that. And so, that's what I'm good at, like scouting talent and getting them to fill the gaps.
I do have some sort of a personal question, but that may be interesting for students. Well, so here we have a few students that are actually working on a VR game in Unreal. Obviously, the VR scene right now is pretty flooded with like Unity developers, which I am.
I noticed.
And so I was wondering a little bit if you had ideas or thoughts about like developing for VR in Unreal versus what was your experience? Can you talk a little bit about that?
So for me, originally, like, I got into Unreal because that was like just what SCAD was teaching at the time. I took one of Shami's classes, and then I just kind of went from there. So all the tech art skills that I had learned they would just, some of them don't transfer to Unity. But I will say, developing for VR in Unreal is, I don't know, I like it. It's great. There are a few things lacking on the artistic side of things where you have much more control over the rendering style and things like that in Unity, and you can do a lot more stylized stuff, which is a great plus for Unity. Like in Serial, like a big difference, like in Serial's game, he can have fog, like fog in his game, but Unreal deprecated like they only use like the volumetric fog. So I had to make like a material that creates like this fog that's driven by a material parameter collection that everything in the game has applied to it, so that I have fog. So little things like that, Unreal is quite annoying. But Unity, you can do a lot more stuff a lot easier when it comes to like visual things. Unreal also has, let's see, what was I going to say? In terms of job, like I think that if you are a good VR dev in Unreal, you're going to be quite valuable in the job space. I do see quite a lot of companies that are Unreal companies that are looking to develop for VR games, or they're willing to step into the VR market, but their whole pipeline is Unreal based. And there are almost zero, there are hardly any Unreal VR devs. I will say that. In our Oculus Launchpad group, there was only, there was like 5 out of 100. Out of 100 participants, there was only like 5 of us that were VR or Unreal VR devs. So if you want a higher chance of getting a job and you're deciding between the two programs, I would recommend doing Unreal, just for the potential job market. Like I had troubles finding a VR dev. Like I literally found like the one VR dev on Twitter who posts, content nonstop. And he's like amazing. He's prototyped our entire game pretty much in like a week. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Oh no, absolutely. Michael, you have a question?
Yeah, so we're talking a little bit about what it looks like to be hired as like as a VR dev, specifically on Unreal. And what I wanted to ask was, what does a portfolio look like for that? Or do you typically want to specialize in just like animating or modeling there? Or
so it depends. Like, all right, so it depends what you want to do. Like, if you can say I'm a Unreal dev, but what do you specialize in? Do you specialize in modeling? Do you specialize in gameplay? Do you specialize in animation, sound design? Do you have a specialization, or are you just kind of generalist all over?
Generalist at the moment. Yeah, I've taken like 2 classes in the ITGM and like 1 class, like the intro class in VR. So I haven't
decided yet. Okay, well,
yeah.
I will say I don't recommend going into environment art at the moment. I recently did a environment artist. I mean, unless it's like you're insane, your passion, and you're really good at it, and you're just like you're the best. But it is quite competitive. Environment art and modeling, those are the most competitive fields right now. I did a job posting recently, and we had, I think, about 80% of the applicants were environment artists, opposed to like the coders, the animators. If you're really into just about anything, I highly recommend either going into tech art or actually just VR interactions. And I'll show you the guy I hired.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, tech art's definitely what has my eye. I'm curious if you looked at utilizing any Houdini assets, or how well those work in VR.
So like Houdini is right. It's like all procedural, and I don't know how much control you have over the edge flow, the edge loops and stuff. Depending on how low poly you can get it, because currently in VR, especially it's all mobile based. Like PC VR is basically dead. There are a few games being made for it, but it's much better. It's much easier to get a job. You're much more likely to get a job as a 3D artist in VR if you're good at super low poly stuff. Like I actually did like a contest recently where I had these modelers like try to beat me and making something lower poly than me and like better, and none of them could do it. And and if they could beat me, I would hire them, but no one could do better.
Can I apply, because I'm pretty sure I can.
Yeah, of course you can. I would do, honestly, if you want to come work with me, that would be sick, because I need someone who's better than me to replace me. I don't want to have to go back and like correct your work because you don't know how to tie off your edge loops, right? Like if you have like edge loops going all over the place and they're unnecessary, I'm not going to hire you out and if you don't display your edge, like your topology on your models on your portfolio, I will not contact you.
That's actually super interesting because that's something that we do at SCAD. We usually encourage students to kind of show breakdowns. It's like, don't just show the result, but show how you got there, like show the topology, show the texture sheets, show all of those types of things. So it's good to hear that from someone that is currently hiring that, yes, people do pay attention to this.
I do.
Some won't, but many will.
The ones who won't pay attention to that are the ones who don't care about they're hiring you for your sculpting abilities usually. Like if they're looking for someone who's really good at sculpting, or they're not worried about performance. They're not trying to hit multiple platforms that have lower requirements. But for VR specifically, especially mobile VR, every single triangle counts. Literally, everyone counts. For example, the contest that I did. My car, I had them model the same car as me. My car was 2,500 triangles. Theirs was no one could get it below 3,000 triangles. And that's huge. That means I could have almost a whole nother car. I could have like more cars on screen than they could, just from that 500 triangles. Because like maybe on Quest 2 you have like less than 1 million triangles on screen at a time.
It's way lower than that. I try in my game right now. I try to stay under 120,000.
Is that for Quest 1 or Quest 2?
Well, I'm always targeting Quest 1 because
for Quest 1 it's only like 200,000. Like the max that we could pull off on Quest 1 was 200,000.
One thing that so you've been talking about topology optimization, which is something that I mean, obviously I'm sharply aware of.
You're way better. You're way better at that than me.
But the style is also very, very different. I'm way more low poly than you are because my game is also based on pixel art. And that brings me to the next question and something that I'm struggling a little bit explaining to students. Like for example, on my game, all the textures are atlased. So that means that when you're in one environment, everything is on one texture. I'm rendering one material. So that means that in Unity, I have a stat window that I can overlay on my game and I can see what are my draw calls. I mean, they are not called draw calls, they are called set passes and batches.
We call them draw calls in Unreal.
I used to call them draw calls, right? And so in my game, I'm usually around 50 draw calls, and that's a good target for the Quest. On Unreal, what is the equivalent and how do you monitor without putting the headset and things like that? How do you monitor performance on Unreal? Do you have like statistics that you can run?
Yes. You can have, there's like the stats. I always forget the thing that you type in, but like when you pull up the console, it's like stats.rpg or something. Off the top of my head, I don't remember because I always have to ask my programmer this because like and then
I would love if you could post it up on
I'll find it
because it's something I cannot really advise my students because I don't know Unreal, and it's like I'm like in Unity it's there, and when I'm making an environment I can see already if I'm out of target or not, and I would love for them to have that thing that they can rely upon.
I'll have to go look at the exact thing, but so like there's this little thing you type in like something about stats GPU or something like that, and it'll pull up this little menu on the screen here, and then it'll show you how many triangles per view, like you're looking at this angle here, and then this is our stress test map. We use to stress test like how many buildings we have on screen and how many characters and things. So it'll pop up like right here in the top of the window, and then it'll say how many triangles are on screen, how many draw calls, and all that stuff, all the things you need to know. So they're called draw calls in Unreal.
Okay.
So you just monitor those because like Quest is like what Quest 1 is super low. Like, what is it, like 70 or something?
It's less that it has to be less than 100, but usually, I mean, even 100, you're starting. It depends on like, again, it's a balancing act, right? It's the draw calls plus the triangles that you're showing plus the size of the textures that you're loading, and
there's no exact number that you can aim for, right? Because like you're either offloading. It depends where your headroom is in each of those categories, right? I have a much lower headroom than most people on Quest 2 because we're using a high. I can show it, right? This is also something that you can use in Unreal, the optimization. So if you go to Lit, there's the optimization view modes, and currently we're in Vulkan rendering, so we only get like shader complexity. I need to turn it off. So then you'll get the shader complexity, and this will kind of show how your shaders are. This is not my shader. This is the default Unreal Grid material, and it's very unperformant. But so here's our shaders for like our panels and portals. Anytime one of these panels spawns, you can see that it's not, the greatest performance, right? Every time one of these panels spawns, anything that's intersecting this panel gets cut out. So I have to like dynamically switch materials at runtime to tell it to cut out the space that's like essentially deleting the pixels that are, in this panel here, so nothing intersects it. And that would mean, like, the way we used to do it is that every object in the game always had this, we call it our panel shader, applied to it. And it killed our performance and only allowed us to have like a much lower triangle count on screen at a time. But we recently just moved to like a dynamic system where when this spawns, it swaps the material to our portal cutout and then allows it to you won't see it like the building here anymore. So that way, instead of having it applied to every single object at all time, it only happens when these panels spawn. So that saved us a lot of headroom. So you're always having to battle your shader complexity. Actually, on Unreal, I can show you where that is as well. Just open the material really quick. So you can have your stats right here, and then it'll show you the complexity of the shader. And you can see the shaders in my game are literally just a diffuse texture into the emissive, completely unlit. And we're doing that because A, it fits our style, and B, it gives us more headroom for more triangle count or more, other things, other effects that we want to do.
That's badass. That's awesome.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Michael, do you have a question?
Yeah, one more. I don't know if it's cool if I keep doing like the
absolutely. I mean,
no, it's fine. Yeah.
I think we all love questions here. So.
Yeah, ask as many as you want.
So talking on optimization, have you had the chance to check out the space warp technology that Oculus released?
So space warp is my friend's. So it's like, I can't remember, some company did a big article on my friend's game that uses it, Samurai Slaughterhouse or whatever. I feel like his game uses it because it can get away with it because it's like a wild style. Space warp, for me, we can't use it in our project. It looks really bad. But maybe other projects it works, at least in our project, where when you turn on object space warp, like you can see I have a lot of horizontal and vertical lines in my game that are very apparent. And if you walk up to like this wall here and then you move your hand in front of your face, you can just see this artifacting where it's just wobbling. And it doesn't look very good. And
yeah, space warp is, in my opinion, it's a unicorn.
I think it's a unicorn for sure.
Yeah,
sure.
It's getting there, but don't rely on it.
Don't believe the hype.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask if it was like worth trying or not. That's all.
Yeah, no, my my friend keeps posting these things and making people believe it's like this amazing thing, but it's literally just because his game has such a style. It's like a black and white. It's a black and white game, and it's like you can just. It actually seems okay in his game, right?
Is that the samurai?
Samurai Slaughterhouse. Did you see some? I don't know if it was in video or some big article was written using his game as a reference, and I'm sitting here thinking, no, I don't think. No.
Well, that's the thing. Everybody. That's the problem with mobile VR. I mean, so let's clear a few things for our audience there. If you're developing for VR, if you want a job, if you want to make money, if you want to sell your game, it has to be mobile. It has to be Quest, right? I mean, if you're developing a PC VR game, you're not going to sell it. Except
you're not going to get funding for it either.
So it's all about mobile VR, and right now mobile VR is only one actor. That's the Quest. So if you're shipping something, you're shipping it on the Quest. And so of course, Space Warp is at the crux of the discussion, because everybody wants better graphics with lower ticket on performance. And Space Warp promise you that, oh, well, you can basically cut your frame rate by half. The reality, though, is that, I mean, it doesn't work for my game at all, because it's pixel art. So that means that if things get like
it'll look
compressed and things, it will look absolutely detestable. It doesn't look rough. Even his, which is kind of like flatter textures, flatter colors and things like that, as soon as you're starting to have lines and things like that, which you should, because you're, again, low poly and things like that, is going to look awful as well. So Space Warp right now, it's an edge case, in my opinion. Some games may be able to use it, but don't rely on it. Like, it's not going to it's not going to save your day.
Space Warp is good if you did poor optimization at the start, and like just you're like, if your game is not already hitting frame rate, it might save your ship, but you should never, that should have never been the thing in the beginning. Like, you should be relying, because like my game always runs above the required, what is it, like 72 frames, like no matter what. Like we don't, like, it's because it's literally just a texture, and our models are really low poly, and there's nothing special going on there for the most part.
Which brings me to the next thing, which, like, my biggest question is, you graduated in animation, but even and you said, you know, when you were pitching your game and things like that, you were doing it in Sequencer, which I assume is kind of like,
it's like a cinematic tool.
Yeah, the cinematic tool. But still, though, I'm kind of impressed that for an animation student, you seem to have a pretty good knowledge of the tech side of Unreal and things like that. How did that happen? Did you take some classes in ITGM? How did you develop? Because that's one thing. You know, I teach programming, I teach core principles of programming and things like that. And I really try to convince my students. It's like, yes, I'm an artist, you're an artist. Learn coding, learn the technical aspect of things, learn how to do it, because it's super, super important. What do you tell those people, and how did you do it?
So essentially, like, I had this idea, right? And I knew that I needed to make this VR game, and I had to do it by myself. And so I have, especially if you're in the animation major, you have a ton of free electives. And so what I did is I took all of my free electives and took like Shami's modeling class.
Cookson, maybe?
No,
did you?
I didn't take. I don't think I had any Cookson class. I think, honestly, I'm drawing a blank at all the classes I took as myself. But I know I did take one. I took one class with Professor Shami's, and he had like this environment class. I took one class with. Does he still teach? I don't.
Shami, yeah.
So I took one environment class with Shami, because that's what I was interested in. I figured I would do the environment stuff, and then I can't remember if I took one more class in ITGM or not. But yeah, so I took a class with Shami, and that's where I learned the basics, right? Like all the principles of doing how to do 3D modeling for game dev. Because in the animation industry, it's totally different. Like, you can just slap polygons for days, no one cares. Like, they're just willy-nilly about it, and they're just like, woo, you know. Then I took Shami's class. I was like, you mean I have to delete back faces? What is this? You know. And so I took Shami's class. That's where I first started learning. But then I think I might have ran out of electives at some point, and then I might have taken another class with like Walter Woods or something. I don't completely remember. But yeah, I just started learning. Once I used up all my free electives, I started learning on the side, you know, because all I had was like I took classes that let me like independent studies in the animation major, and I used that time to kind of learn all the tech stuff that I could. And, you know, I talked to Walter Woods, and I talked to other ITGM students about things and how to do it. And then I just followed, you know, tutorials online. I highly recommend, again, Twitter. I learned a lot of stuff. I followed like this artist, see, Christian Sparks. This dude, he's like this tech artist guy who's pretty famous in the Unreal space, and it's where everyone goes to learn like cell shading and stylized environments and stuff. He was really active on the Unreal forums and other places like that, and so I just kind of followed his Twitter, and anytime he'd post like tech breakdowns, I'd try to emulate it. And I would just go through and just watch these tutorials and try to figure out as much as I can. And a lot of it is just learning by doing. You know, I got my quest and I filled up a scene with a bunch of models, and I was like, okay, this isn't run. And then I would go and, you know, figure out what makes it tick, right? And why isn't it running? And slowly I crafted my style, I guess, that runs on Quest. I don't know if that answers the question or not, but
that's awesome. I need to. I'm actually surprised that he doesn't have more followers.
Yeah, exactly. He's a legend. He is a legend in the space. Like I you know, if you do tech art in Unreal, and he's the guy that you learn from.
Awesome. Do we have any more questions, or should we wrap this up?
Yeah, I will. I think Michael said something about portfolio that I did want to show that I didn't get a chance to. So like I said, I use Twitter and I run around Twitter to do stuff. And what I was looking for from someone who did like purely gameplay was this guy. He created his own like VR playground for Unreal. It's like a plugin that you can buy on the Epic Store. And so like if you showed me like a demo reel like this as a VR programmer, I would hire you instantly. You know, if you created your own tool set that could do all the things that he displays here.
Okay, so he wouldn't, when he's like showcasing what he's made, he wouldn't want to like use
VR, the VR expansion plugin.
No, I was gonna say like if he's showing like his programming capabilities, like what he's able to make, he wouldn't show that with like any other art, right?
Yeah,
like,
no, so yeah, he doesn't need to make like pretty art assets. He doesn't need to do like when I'm looking at programming gameplay stuff, I'm looking at the functionality, the usability of it. And then obviously I have to go and play it and test it to make sure that it's good. And then in the interview stage, we take a look at his code or a look at his blueprinting, make sure that he doesn't like make spaghetti code. You know, we don't want spaghetti nodes. And then once we got past that, you know, then we're like, oh yeah, work for us, please. And then on the tech art side of things, this guy I recently hired, just to show you what could get you an easy, what kind of stuff portfolio could get you a job as a tech artist. Well, he created these beetles in my game or whatever, but this guy's a tech artist, and what he does is he like makes like a lot of vertex animation stuff. So he essentially, this guy locked himself in a wooden cabin in the woods in California, and then just started learning tech art, right? And that's all he did. He just learned how to do like all these vertex animations. He learned how to make water, and then he put together like this beautiful like pack that just shows off all the types of things that he can do. So like all these animations of birds are like Niagara particles. They're all driven by vertex animation. There's no bones or skeletons in these, so you can have like thousands of them on screen at a time. And so that's kind of stuff we were looking for, right? We were looking for someone who could do these types of tech art things, but make them look really pretty, like all this types of stuff. This guy has like almost no followers. I just randomly found, well, now he has a lot, but before when I found him,
wait, so are you telling me that 500 is a lot?
Well, it's not, no, 500, it's a lot from what he had. He had like 100, okay? Before Serial, he had like 100, all right?
I'm at 700 and I'm super happy.
Yeah, 500. I was happy at 500 back in the day as well. Yeah, it's his stuff is amazing. And then he also shows like how he sets it up. Some other tech stuff inside of Unreal. So like creating these little breakdown videos is super important for your portfolio. You always gotta kind of show what you're, you know, the behind the scenes of what you're making, right? And he doesn't have an art station. He doesn't have any kind of portfolio. He just has a Twitter, and I just scrolled through it like this. And I was like, holy shit, this guy's amazing. You know, and he shows his modeling skills. And here you can see how he sets up his vertex animation stuff that's just texture based. And now he's working on my game, you know, making good money. So
Awesome. How is your team? Like, you are all remote?
Yeah, all remote. Yep. We don't have a single. None of us have ever met each other.
I think we had did we have one more question, Michael?
Yeah, Michael.
Yeah. Just like looking at like tech art portfolios. What I understand, to get hired as a tech artist is it's not good enough to just be able to like make a ton of things that have already been done before. You kind of have to be able to make new things that are asked of you from scratch, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then additionally, also I'm pretty sure it's not enough to like just know blueprinting, right? Like you have to know.
No, you have to know more. So I'll show you another example of what he does for us. So essentially the tech artist is the kind of guy where I say, I want this to happen and your job is to make it happen. Like I have this idea of how to make like water, or let's just use a control rig. So he also specializes in rigging. So that's another big plus. Like if you can do any type of rigging, then that's also a huge plus. So I asked him, okay, build me a control rig, right? And he just went and did it. He's never done it before. He has never made a control rig in Unreal. He's never done any of this stuff. Of course, there's like a template that you use to start your base, but then we started adding base, like custom functionality to the rig, which he had never done before, but he learned how to do it very quickly. So I asked him, hey, make me a mouth that talks. Let me have eyes that move. These are all 2D textures. Let me change facial. I can change different faces depending on where I move this little slider here. And then I was like, oh, can you add something that like literally yesterday, I just like, hey, can you add me a control that just lets me, control the fingers all at once, right? And he did it within like a day. So you need to be able to like kind of solve problems, like technical on a technical level. They have to be performant too, right? Like I wanted to have like swarms of little bugs in my game and stuff like that. And so he had to figure out, I need to go, what can I do to get that to work for VR? We got a super low poly little beetle model, and then he made like a bunch of vertex animations for them. Same with our fish. He made like flocking. This doesn't have flocking, but like swimming animations and things like that.
Michael, if when you join the Discord, I will post this. I will make it a YouTube video so that you guys can watch it again. It will be on my channel. It's Garage Collective, which is my studio, and there are a number of interviews that happened before, many featuring some tech artists. So I encourage you to kind of like watch them, because you will, particularly the last one that I had was with a tech artist from 343 that was working on Halo Infinite, and he kind of like took the time to break down like the different tech arts, like and what they do, etc. So if you're interested in tech art, you should definitely watch that. And I'm hoping to have, I'm hoping I have a student that just became a tech artist for a studio here in Savannah, and I'm kind of hoping to have him also as an interviewee. So please keep tabs if you have questions, particularly since you seem to be at the beginning of your major. I invite you to kind of keep tabs on this, because you may get more answers to your question.
Yeah. Because I'm not like the biggest. I kind of dabble in everything, right? Like,
well, I mean, but again, like as I said, for a student in animation, I think your knowledge of Unreal was pretty badass.
Thank you. Yeah. I think I know quite a lot now, just from just slowly. I took those basic classes at SCAD, and then I just used that to like. Then once I knew what to search for, then it became very easy to learn more. Yeah.
This is this was super inspiring, and as I said, like you're even I will watch this again and apply some of your advices to myself, because I think that there are some aspects of the business side that I'm like definitely not applying. So that's super interesting. Kane, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Oh,
I have one last question, if you don't mind. So if I have to take one class only from ITGM, on like Unreal programming, which class would you recommend? Because I tried the code principle. That's more on like the artistic programming. It's not about Unreal actually. So is there like a class that I would say take this one and then you should be good to go?
For general gameplay programming, right?
Just to get started on like VR programming.
VR programming, I don't think there was one when I took classes at SCAD, to be honest. You could take a class.
There is a class from Professor Chu in the AR VR major, because now it's a thing. At the time Kane was a student, it did not existed. But I think that there is a class from Professor Chu that kind of covers a lot of the basics. I think that there is also a class from Professor Woods. And
yes, so Professor Woods is a good one to take.
So, but in AR VR, which is a new offering that, so Professor Woods has kind of a lower entry bar class, and then Professor Chu has kind of like a similar class but based on Unity. So Professor Woods is Unreal, Professor Chu is Unity, and both of these classes are offered in the AR VR major.
Right, thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
I would go to that major and see, because like Woods is good because he's making a VR game right now himself. So definitely hit him up. He was like the chair of my thesis or whatever. So or one of the committee members, but yeah.
Okay, no more questions.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's wrap this up. Kane, again, thank you so much. That was super interesting.
Hopefully it wasn't too long.
No. Well, we don't have a time limit. We don't have a time stamp. No, I mean, it was super interesting. You covered a lot of stuff. I'm as I said, I'm inspired, and I hope that our students here are inspired. And I hope that those of you that are watching this at home after it's posted on YouTube and things like that are also inspired. Thank you so much, Kane.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
Yep. All right.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye. Good luck, everybody.